Good morning. The stricter circuit breaker measures have been in place for about 2 weeks now. The number of new cases in the community has been on the decline. There were 11 cases in the community yesterday. 2 weeks ago, on 15 April, we had 38 cases. The average daily number of new cases in the community has dropped by more than half, from 25 in the week before to 12 in the past week. The number of unlinked cases in the community has also decreased from an average of 16 cases per day in the week before to an average of 6 per day in the past week. With a decrease in community transmission, the multi-ministry task force will progressively ease the tighter circuit breaker measures over the coming weeks. But we need to do this carefully. Even as we cautiously lift some restrictions, we may need to put in place further safeguards as necessary. We will allow the gradual resumption of selected activities and services in the coming weeks, subject to the necessary safe management measures being put in place. For example, from 5th May 2020, traditional Chinese medicine, needle acupuncture, will be allowed for pain management if assessed by the TCM practitioner to be essential. TCM halls with registered TCM practitioner will also be allowed to sell retail products to meet the needs of Singaporeans. We will also allow some businesses to resume operations from 12 May. We will put in place measures to facilitate the gradual reopening of work premises and the economy. My co-chair, Minister Lawrence Wong, will share more later. While the number of community cases has come down, we are not out of the woods yet. New clusters may form if we let our guards down. We must press on with our efforts so that we continue to keep the numbers low. The rest of the circuit breaker measures continue to be crucial in keeping transmissions low in the community and will remain in force until 1st of June. The multi-ministry task force will closely observe the trends over the coming weeks and adjust further as necessary. Should the situation clearly be under control by 1st June, we will be able to further roll back some of the circuit breaker measures gradually to allow a greater degree of normalcy. Even then, it will be a new normal we all have to adapt to. We must continue to be vigilant. The task force will monitor the number of COVID-19 cases closely. Should there be emerging trends of increasing transmissions, we may have to reinstate some of the precautionary measures. The experience of many countries has taught us that COVID-19 is hard to eradicate. We may get cases and even clusters from time to time. What is important is how we respond when such cases are found. That is why our strategy of testing and quickly ring-fencing confirmed cases remained critical in our fight against COVID-19. We will leverage technology to speed up contact tracing so that we can more effectively prevent the formation of new clusters. We must rally as a society and adapt with resilience. At the individual level, we must keep up our good habits such as safe distancing, personal hygiene, and wearing of masks. Let us be socially responsible so that we can keep the infections at bay. Let me say a few words in Mandarin. 较严谨的阻断措施推行到现在大概2个星期了，社区里的新病例已经逐渐的减少，每天平均出现的社区新病例有12起，比前一个星期的25起少了一半。社区里出现的暂时无关联病例也减少了，从前个星期的平均每天16起，在3个星期减少到6起。由于社区传播的情况开始好转，跨部门工作小组接下来的几个星期会逐步放宽之前收紧的阻断措施。例如，从下周二5月5号开始，中医在评估后，如果觉得需要为病人针灸减轻疼痛，他们可以这么做。那些在店里有注册中医的中药行，也可以售卖商品和药物，以应国人的需求。我们也会从5月12日开始，让一些商业恢复运作。 黄部长将加以解说。但我要强调，我们不能够掉以轻心，新的感染群仍然可能出现，所以我们必须继续努力，确保新病例维持在最低的水平。其他阻断措施也会继续实行到6月1号，以确保社区传播的情况不会恶化。跨部门工作小组在接下来的几个星期会密切地注意整体的趋势，在必要时调整我们的对策。如果到了6月1号，疫情明显的受到了控制，我们就可以逐步的解除一些阻断措施，让大家能够恢复较正常的生活。但是，就算到了那个时候，我们还是必须保持警惕，以免疫情再度恶化。我们必须团结一致，坚韧不拔地应对疫情。在个人方面，我们必须继续维持良好的习惯，包括保持安全距离和个人的卫生，以及外出的时候要戴口罩。我相信，只要我们每个人都能够尽本分，负起社会责任，大家必能战胜病魔。谢谢。I will now invite my Director of Medical Service to give an update on the medical condition.
Thank you very much, Minister. As today's figures only come out after 12 noon, that being the time in which we look at the information and it will be then correct as of that particular period of time. The information I provide right now pertains to the data that comes out from yesterday's press releases. And as of yesterday, the 1st of May, 12 p.m., the Ministry of Health had confirmed and verified an additional 932 cases of COVID-19 infection in Singapore. That breakdown was provided in the press statement yesterday evening. It included no imported cases, 11 cases in the community, and this includes 5 Singaporeans, all permanent residents, as well as 6 work pass holders. There were also work permit holders residing outside the dormitories with infections. That totaled 16 new cases and 905 new cases which comprised work permit holders who were residing in the dormitories. These details are also provided within our daily situation report, which is available on the Ministry of Health's website. Of the new cases, 70% of them are linked to known clusters, while the rest are pending further investigations and contact tracing. Within the population of foreign workers in the dormitories that had been observed for acute respiratory tract infections and not specifically swab tested to diagnose COVID-19, this numbered 1657 since we started this differentiated policy for specific dorms with a higher risk of or rate of infection over the last 1.5 weeks. In the past week, up to the 30th of April, the Ministry of Health had uncovered links for 921 previously unlinked cases, and this is a result of ongoing epidemiological investigations and contact tracing, which continues even over this weekend. In all, 1,268 cases have fully recovered from their infection, and there's a current total number of 1,764 confirmed cases still in the hospital, of which the majority are stable or improving, and 23 remain in critical condition in the intensive care units. 14,053 cases are isolated and cared for in our community facilities, and these are generally, as I mentioned earlier, having mild symptoms or are clinically well but still tested positive for COVID-19. In all, 16 cases, 16 people have passed away from complications arising from COVID-19 infection. Thank you.
Ask Minister Wong to elaborate on the plans.
Good morning. We tightened the circuit breaker measures 2 weeks ago, and we said that these measures would be in place till 4th of May, and we would review what will happen after that. So far, our community numbers have been coming down. We've been making good progress, but we are not yet at single digits when it comes to local transmission. So it is not time to lift the tighter measures we have in place. We still need to continue with them for at least another week, but we can start making some adjustments. So on the 5th of May, we will make some minor adjustments. Specifically for traditional Chinese medicine, we will allow practitioners to do needle acupuncture for pain management. We will also allow the Chinese medical halls linked to these TCM outlets to sell retail products. Next, for strata-titled residential buildings, we have up to now maintained a very tight position where we prohibited activities within the grounds of the residential development or the private condominium. The key consideration there was in these enclosed spaces, it may be hard for enforcement and you may end up with crowds inside the condominium. And we in fact had feedback arising from such concerns early in the circuit breaker period, if some of you remembered. And that's why we prohibited all such activities within the compound. But we have done a review and we will allow essential activities to be carried out there. Essentially, the same rules outside in a public area will now apply within the residential development as well. Our enforcement officers will go in periodically to inspect and check and enforce the rules. But importantly, we also call on all the MCSTs and managing agents within these developments to do their part and also help with the enforcement. So these are the adjustments we will make from 5th of May. The rest of the measures remain unchanged, and so the rest of the very tight circuit breaker measures will have to go on for one more week. Thereafter, I lost the feed. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure whether you could. Thereafter, on 12th of May, we will allow selected activities and services to resume operations. And these activities will include home-based businesses, food manufacturing and selected food retail outlets, laundry services, barbers, and pet supplies. And the detailed listings will be in the statement and in the website. Again, if you look beyond the 12th of May, from 19th of May, we will start to bring back students in small groups for face-to-face lessons. We will focus initially on the graduating cohort that are taking national exams. And so priority will be given to those who require school facilities for their coursework and practical sessions, and those who need additional support during the school vacation period. The institutions of higher learning, particularly the ITEs, will also bring back small groups of students on campus for critical consultations, projects, or practicums. I've talked about some services that we will resume, schools. For the economy and work premises, we will also phase in a gradual reopening. But as we go about doing this gradual reopening of work premises, the key requirements have to be put in place. And that is much stricter guidelines and requirements for safe management within the workplaces. This must now be an integral part of any work operations. We have always talked about workplace safety and health. Now, workplace safety and health must take into consideration safe distancing and the whole range of safe management practices that are critical to prevent the spread of the virus within the work premises. And there are many things that workplaces, employers, and firms will have to do. For example, making sure that their colleagues, the staff at work are physically spaced out when they are working, that there is no mixing of staff across different teams when they are deployed at different sites, and also to ensure there's no gathering of staff, be it at the pantries or during lunch breaks. So quite a number of requirements will have to be put in place. We are working out the specific measures, and we will engage the industry associations and business chambers so that they can put in place all of these requirements and they will be strictly enforced before we can allow our work premises to be opened up and more workers to start coming back to work. One specific requirement is that we will leverage on technology and require all businesses and services that are open up from 12th of May to put in place the Safe Entry app. This is the app that we have introduced. Some are already rolling it out. Essentially, it allows us to log in when people or visitors are coming to particular locations, and that will allow us to speed up contact tracing. We've mapped out a broad outline of how we intend to adjust the measures from 5th of May and even beyond that in the coming weeks so that everyone has a sense of what to expect through the rest of the circuit breaker period. But I should caution that the situation is fluid, it's dynamic, and the plans may well have to be further adjusted depending on how the infection and how the situation unfolds in the coming days and weeks. But the bottom line, even as we ease and adjust some of these measures, the bottom line is this. This is not the time to slacken and let our guard down. We may be easing some measures, but we must stay very disciplined and vigilant. If there is no necessity to go out, then stay at home. Still, that must remain the mindset for every Singaporean and every resident. Go out only for absolutely essential activities, and when you go out alone as much as possible. Refrain from going out in groups, even if it's people within your own household. All these are, I think, very critical habits that we should still maintain even as we ease up on the circuit breaker measures. Remember, we are not out of the woods. There are still unlinked and undetected cases circulating, and we do not want to risk a flare-up of the virus again. So we have to do this cautiously and gradually, and as we do this, we need everyone to cooperate so that we can open up the economy, resume normal activities safely without causing further clusters to form. Let me just say a few words in Mandarin. 过去1个月来，由于大家的配合，时刻保持安全距离，社区感染有明显下降的趋势。我们在上个月宣布了一些较严谨的阻断措施，加强打击新冠病毒的传播。由于目前已经有一些成效，我们接下来2-3个星期会放宽一些措施。首先，我们会逐步允许某些工作场所恢复办公，但是所有雇主和公司必须遵守更严格的条件，在日常运作中时注意安全。他们必须主动辨认出比较可能导致病毒传播的工作情况，采取所需要的预防措施。我们也将会分段恢复某些活动和服务，前提是必须遵守必要的安全措施。比如说，从5月5号起，住在分层地契住宅的居民，包括私人公寓的居民，将能够在住宅区内的公共空间运动，例如在步道上步行或跑步。不过，居民们也必须要时刻保持安全距离。而从5月12号起，我们也会恢复多一些商业活动，包括让饮食零售商店、居家烘焙生意、洗衣服务店、理发店和宠物用品店。从5月19号起，学校将或允许毕业班的学生分小批回校上课，尤其是需要学校设施来完成功课或 进行实践课的学生，以及在学校假期时需要额外辅助和补课的学生。高等学府，尤其是公益教育学院，也将让学生分小批回校上必要的讨论课和实践课，以及进行小组作业。虽然阻断措施的将逐渐放宽呢，但是我们每个人都必须继续保持警惕，负起个人的责任。如果无必要的话，请大家留在家里，减少在外的活动。不论是在社区或是在工作场所，我们都必须继续保持安全距离，照顾好个人的卫生，并且戴上口罩。这会是一场持久战，我们需要大家坚持努力，才能够打赢新冠病毒。谢谢。
Thank you. I'll now open the floor for questions.
Thank you, panelists. We will now begin the Q&A. Members of the media, please remember to use the raise hand button if you would like to ask a question. Please only ask one question to allow more to participate. May we have the first question from Ray of ST, please?
Hi, good morning, Ministers. My question is quite simple. May I know what are your considerations when deciding which businesses to allow to relax the CB measures, and what does it mean for us post-June when everything else goes back to pre-CB? What other measures and what other things we can expect at that point in time? Thank you.
Can you repeat the second part of the question? I couldn't catch it.
Well, what can we expect in June when we start to lift the CB measures entirely?
Oh, okay. Do I? Okay. The key consideration, as we said, we put in place a tighter set of circuit breaker measures for 2 weeks initially, up to 4th of May. That range of tighter CB measures will now be extended, largely with some very minor adjustments. I mentioned TCM and private residential developments, what you can do within the condo grounds. But other than that, that set of measures remain in place for 1 more week. And thereafter, we will ease on some of the measures, largely going back to the measures before we introduced the tighter set of measures 2 weeks ago. So that's one consideration for what to do from 12th of May onwards. It's not exactly the same. It's not as though we have, it's symmetrical, because we look at risk assessments. We look at areas where there may be higher risk of crowds gathering, and some of these places we will not allow. But other than that, we will relax some of the measures and allow the business to continue. Aside from the ones that we have highlighted, we, as I said, will gradually reopen some work premises. Remember, we brought down the number of workers who are commuting daily to work from 20% to 15% during this tightened period. So from 12th of May onwards, we will start to open up more, but do it gradually and subject to the requirement that all workplace premises that open have to put in place tighter, stricter measures, as I mentioned. And so we are in the process of engaging all the industry associations and business chambers and companies in order to put this in place before we will gradually open up. So that process will start, and then progressively from 12th of May onwards, we can see more workers resuming work or commuting to work daily. So that's the position for the month of May. All right? It's a gradual easing of the tight circuit breaker measures from 12th of May onwards, and then progressively through May, we do some adjustments. From 1st of June, after the circuit breaker period is, after we've completed the end of the circuit breaker period, we will adopt the same posture. We will not open up suddenly and then everything resumes. That's not going to be possible. So that same gradual, calibrated adjustments will apply. I've mapped out what we will plan to do from May, but I think it's premature to say what we can do from June onwards. That's still quite far ahead. Even in the month of May, as I said, the steps we are taking may well have to be adjusted further depending on how the situation unfolds in the coming days or weeks. But we've given a broad outline of what we will do for work, for selected activities, and even for school. So from June onwards, that's something that we are still studying, depending on how the situation unfolds, but the same considerations will apply, meaning to say we will do it in a calibrated, gradual manner, and we will look at risk, and we will ensure that we can resume activities safely without the risk of having new clusters from forming.
Maybe I can add on to say that basically we are looking at a set of balancing criteria. First, we look at the nature of the business, whether they are essential. It's important for these services or businesses to continue. Some are in the supply chain, for example. We could maybe disrupt it for a short period of time, but it's not sustainable, and therefore some of the supply chain has to resume. And maybe some of the services are quite essential for daily living. We can suspend it for a short while, but we need to resume and in some shape or form. So the essential nature of the business is one consideration, but this has to be balanced with the risk of infection transmission. This will take into account the number of workers that will be involved, whether it involves a large number of workers or select number of group of workers. And it also involves whether assessment of whether we are able to put in place adequate precautionary measures to prevent transmission at these places. And of course, it also involves whether it's going to attract crowds and social gatherings and therefore create risk for transmission in the community. So it's a balance between the essential nature of the business versus the risk of transmission and the ability to put in precautionary measures. These factors will vary from time to time depending on the situation, and we will adjust the measures, therefore, from time to time.
Thank you, panelists. May we have the next question from Sung Kiat of Zao Bao, please?
Good morning, ministers. And DMS, just want to ask, as we begin to prepare for the next phase with the gradual easing of the circuit breaker measures, looking back, I'm wondering if the ministers could share with us what were the biggest lessons learned in managing the infections, be it in the dorms or in the community? What could we have done better?
We are still in the heat of battle, but certainly when all this is over, we will have the chance to look back and learn from the experience. This is what we have done each time after every crisis, whether it was the Jamal Islamia incident or after SARS. In fact, the lessons from SARS have been very helpful in enabling us to deal with COVID-19. So likewise, at the right time, we will certainly do a comprehensive review of this pandemic and our response and seek to learn from it. And I have no doubt that we will find many things which we could have done better and many changes which should be made in order for us to be better prepared the next time. So that's our overall attitude, to always seek to learn, to improve, and to do better for the future. But for now, we should focus on the urgent priorities, and that is to bring the outbreak under control, to take care of our migrant workers, and to work out how we can exit from the circuit breaker and resume normal activities safely. The circuit breaker has helped to bring our numbers down and has bought us time. But this is a long fight. And as I said just now, the virus can flare up again anytime. So let us now stay focused on the mission, work together, and win this fight against the virus.
Thank you, panelists. May we have the next question from Cheryl of CNA, please?
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to find out, was there a reason why TCM was highlighted as one of the first essential services to have their restrictions eased? Was it due to a lot of requests and feedback from the community?
It is a result of quite a comprehensive review of the various services that we are planning to allow to resume. TCM services, in fact, largely has been allowed, particularly for pain management for essential chronic diseases. Patients are able to consult TCM practitioners and get treatment. We are now extending it to allow acupuncture and to also allow the retail businesses operation to continue. For previously, patients who consulted the TCM practitioners would also already be able to access the TCM medication and so on while they are at the consultation. Now we are allowing the TCM practices to open up their medical hall, their retail side of the operation, to allow patients to have access to the rest of the Chinese herbal medicines and so on. So I think it is an extension of what we have been allowing so far, and to provide more essential services to meet the needs of Singaporeans who there's still a significant number of Singaporeans who are using Chinese traditional medicine, and therefore we are allowing this to be extended further.
To expand on Minister's reply, we've in fact been engaged in regular reviews of what we deem as essential services, and prior to our review for traditional Chinese medicine services, we had also reviewed allied health services, including the provision of physiotherapy, occupational therapy, counseling, and that announcement about how we would adjust our definition of essential services had in fact taken place and been announced much earlier as well. So this is part of a regular series of reviews that we do, and not necessarily only specific to this current time point in reaction to comments that we've made.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Mayuko of Nikkei?
Hi, thank you. Good morning, ministers. I'd like to ask if you plan to have any test before you for the workers who may start the work from the 12th of May. For example, some of the customer fronting service staff. Are you planning to do any antibody test or anything?
So we are indeed going to scale up our testing regime. We mentioned that a few days ago. We are already starting now, so we're not even talking about the later phase when we resume or open up more work premises. But even today, wherever our test capacity allows, we are already testing essential workers who are working in the community. We are looking at particular areas that we think are more critical. For example, we've highlighted that we are testing our nursing homes, the staff and the residents there. So we are progressively doing more of these tests for the present workforce that are already working. And then as we gradually open up for more people to resume work, commute daily, we will want to also step up the testing regime for them as well.
We should bear in mind that, again, the testing is not foolproof for transmission, because testing only allows you to know that today you are not infected. We are not able to detect the viral load, but you might have already have been infected, but you are during the incubation period. So always bear in mind that the safe distancing and the circuit breaker measures remain very important to prevent transmission of the virus. Testing is just part of the package of measures we'll put in place to enhance the safety and precautionary measures.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Stefania of Financial Times?
Hi, good morning. I was wondering if you had an idea about the number of students, more or less, that would start going back to sort of in-person classes starting from May 19th. And also, and I'm not sure if you do have this number or not, but very approximately even the number of workers that would start going back to work starting on May 12th.
So for workers, as we talked about, we today have 15% of the workforce commuting daily to work. We think that number will rise at some point, progressively from May 12 onwards, but exactly How many, we do not have a target, because the precondition is that the firms have to first put in place all the strict requirements that we've just laid out. And we will be engaging the firms first to have all these conditions in place. They really need tighter standards in place in their workplace premises. And then when they are ready, we will allow the firms to have more workers come back to work on a regular basis, subject to all the safeguards and precautions. So I do expect the numbers to go up beyond 15%, but how fast, how many, that will depend on how quickly the firms can put in place the conditions and assure us that they are taking responsibility and ownership over these safe management practices. On the students, we've highlighted that we are focusing on the graduating cohorts of students who are taking national exams this year. And so naturally, there'll be a bit more anxiety amongst this group. And even within this group, we are not bringing back the entire group back. We are focusing only on those that we are giving priority on for those who require school facilities, for coursework, for their practical sessions, who need additional support and remediation during the school vacation period. So it will be a small group. We will do it with safe distancing measures, safe management measures, so that when the students come, we keep them in separate groups within their cohorts. We are not opening up the entire school system at all. Right? So it's done, again, in a very gradual manner in the month of May. And then from June onwards, we will think through, depending on the situation, then how much more we can open up and how many more students can come back.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Polling of Channel 8 News?
Hi, good morning. Can I check with the gradual lifting of the circuit breaker? Is the task force actually looking at resuming activities for seniors? So, for example, allowing their family members to walk with them or exercise in the neighborhood?
I think seniors will remain a very key concern of the task force because they are more vulnerable, and seniors, when they are infected with COVID-19, also tend to have more severe outcomes. And therefore, we are more cautious about relaxing measures for seniors. We will continue to encourage Singaporeans, particularly the seniors, to stay at home as much as possible. We know it is very difficult. We naturally want to go out to have sunlight, to mix, to meet our friends, to socialize, and to even have interaction with our family members. But I would encourage you to continue to stay at home because this is for your own protection. And for family members, we allow family members to go and visit seniors if necessary, to take care of them. If they need help and support, you can continue to do so. But when you do so, please take all the necessary precautions. We would discourage really a whole family gathering to have dinners together and have a makan together, because that is likely to expose the seniors to more risk of infection. So if you need to go and take care of your seniors, bring them food, deliver groceries for them, you can do so, but do it in a safe way. The best is to do it without contact. You can call them, you can tell them and leave the things for them to pick it up. Minimize exposing the risk exposing the seniors to risk of infection. That's the priority. And you can also engage them, continue to talk to them through Skype or through any social media. This will allow you to maintain contact with them, but avoid exposing them to the risk of infection. I think that is our priority.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Eugene of Today?
Hi. I would just like to clarify the rules for the condos from May 5th. Does it mean that the facilities such as gym and swimming pools remain closed?
Didn't hear you. Can you repeat your question, please?
Could you clarify the rules for the condominiums from May 5th onwards? Does it mean that the facilities such as gyms and swimming pools will remain closed?
Yes, okay. This is referring to condominiums and private residential apartments. Yes, so that is all their facilities, gyms, swimming pools, will have to remain closed, as they are for public sports facilities as well. They will remain closed. But what we are now allowing, as I mentioned just now, is the essential activities like walking, exercising. These are things that we had up to now disallowed within the grounds of a condominium because of the concerns that there may be crowds gathering there. But having reviewed the matter, we are prepared to allow such essential activities within the condominium premises as well, meaning to say the same rules that will apply in a park, for example, will apply within the condominium grounds. So you have to wear a mask, right? You have to, if you are walking, for example, you cannot be walking together in groups within a condominium. The same rules outside and inside. And we will have enforcement officers going in to check and to inspect. But as I mentioned, we also expect the MCST and the managing agent to do their part. They can appoint security guards and to go in and to also ensure that safe distancing and the rules are properly enforced within the condominium grounds. That's the change that we are making from 5th of May onwards.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Nicholas of Yahoo News?
Hi. What is the task force's view on the reopening of places of worship such as churches and mosques? And also, we've been told many times that we must be prepared for extended period of lifestyle changes, a new normal of like wearing masks and sitting 1 meter apart in hawker centers, for example. Is there an end date then that you anticipate for some of these measures, or would it be something that will go on for many months going ahead?
It is really very hard to predict how long some of these basic precautions should be in place for. But largely, if you look at the adjustments we're making or we have announced, we are going to be cautious and quite gradual in allowing for any relaxation. And the kinds of activities that I think will be we will want to refrain from are any kinds of close contact with people. So any premise, any event, any activities that entails large groups gathering in close proximity, I think that those sorts of settings will have to wait for quite some time before they can resume. I don't know exactly when, but I would imagine that these sorts of settings, these kinds of high-touch, close contact activities will be the last that we will allow. All right? So we just have to be mindful. This is the nature of the infection. Whenever there is close contact, interactions with people, that's how the virus will spread. So we have to be very careful about that. But even in a workplace, and that's why we emphasize, even within a workplace, we also know that similar types of activities can easily happen in a staff canteen, in a pantry. So the work may be okay, the people are seated separately, 1 meter apart, wearing masks, but then they let their guard down in a staff canteen. They start to socialize at the pantry. They go out for lunch breaks in groups, and then again they let their guard down. So even within a workplace setting, all of these precautions and safeguards have to be put in place to ensure that such activities do not happen.
Just to clarify, you are still not allowed to go out for lunch together in the restaurants. You only allowed to take away. And even if you go and buy takeaways, we also discourage going out in groups to buy takeaways. So try to go, if you can, on your own, and you can buy for your friends and for your colleagues, but don't go out in groups because the risk of transmission is always there. We haven't reached 0 cases yet, and there is yet no vaccine, and therefore the transmission is likely to continue. Some may remain undetected, and we must do what we can to prevent transmission, and in particular to prevent clusters from forming. And therefore, large gatherings, social gatherings, is something that we will have to continue to control and disallow for the time being until we are able to have a better control and lever on the transmission of the infection.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Aradhana of Reuters?
Thank you, Ministers, Prof. Ma. Just a clarification from me. Minister Wong, you mentioned that more workplaces will start to open from May 12th. When you say more workplaces, is this beyond the ones that you've identified as essential services, such as some home-based businesses, laundry and barbers? Are you talking about other offices and places like that as well?
Yes, so the work premises goes beyond the selected retail services that are highlighted. In fact, those do not typically require a lot of people to come to work, right? So those selected services we are allowing to start from 12th of May, as they had before the tightened circuit breaker measures were put in place 2 weeks ago, right? So from 12th of May, which would have been 3 weeks, have passed, and then we will allow some of these selected retail services to resume. But on top of that, as I said, on top of that, we had cut back the workforce to 15%. We had tightened up the number of workers who need to work, commute to work daily. So on top of the selected services, we will allow a gradual reopening of more work premises in various parts of the economy and more workers coming back to work progressively, subject to the safeguards being put in place.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Janathanan of TM, please?
Hi, good morning. Just to clarify, with regards to the reclassification of TCMs as an essential service, what about other non-TCM centers for alternative medicine like Indian traditional medicine, chiropractic care, etc.? Will they also eventually be considered essential in time to come?
Not at this time. We will continue to review the situation and look at whether or not we can allow these services to reopen at a later date, but not at this time. We're not at this time thinking of reopening those services in tandem with the reopening of traditional Chinese medicine, practitioner scope of practice, as well as the traditional Chinese medicine halls.
Thank you. May we now have the last question from Hui Chun of Wan Bao.
Hi, I would like to check because just now, Minister mentioned that some of the shops will actually progressively open from 12 May onwards. But we understand that from some shops yesterday they have progressively actually put up the notice that they will be open from 5th May onwards, and one of the shops are one of the bubble tea shops. So is there any criteria or consideration, or shop by shop you all will actually decide on the different basis?
I'm not sure why some of them had gone ahead to put up that notification. It may well be that they are hoping that the things will be lifted after 4th of May, because we did say that we would review after 4th of May. But we are not opening up after 4th of May at all. As you can see from the announcement today, it will only start from the 12th of May. And even so, we have stated the categories that we will allow to open up from 12th of May onwards. And the individual shops will also be notified they need to get exemption specifically from the Ministry of Trade and Industry before they can start resuming operations. Right? So from now to 12th of May, MTI will be doing that. The broad categories will be updated, and then the specific shops will be notified as well. And if the shops have not been notified, they should not presume that they can be allowed to start operations at all.
Thank you. We actually have one final question from Janice of Business Times.
Hi, sorry for focusing on this again, but just to confirm, for the reopening of workplace premises, besides the categories you've mentioned, these will still be premises that were allowed to operate earlier in the circuit breaker before the tightening, as opposed to those that, were just exempted from the start of the circuit breaker. Is that correct? So basically, if you were allowed to operate at the early part of the circuit breaker, then you may be allowed to after May 12th. But if not, you shouldn't get your hopes up, basically.
Yes, that's generally the case. So for companies that had not been allowed to operate at the start of the circuit breaker, We do not expect a lot of them to be able to resume, right? We do not expect. There may be a few, but again, we will be quite selective about this. Largely, the position post 12th of May is reverting, is to go back to where we were before the tighter circuit breaker measures were in place. But even there, it's not identical. There are some companies that were operating before, which we may not want to allow because of assessment of risk and the fact that some of these places or entities may not be ready. And there may well be some entities that we think that we want to allow. They are ready, they have safeguards in place, and we can consider them as part of the essential workforce. So there will be a few at the margins, but largely we'll be going back to that position. And then on top of the entities itself, we will allow more workers to come back. Because remember, we had done a cut across the board, across many entities, to just reduce the number of workers who need to commute daily. So for some of these entities, we will allow more workers now, or a resumption of the workers that were previously cut back to start working again. But as I said just now, it's subject to these entities, the workplaces, the employers, putting in place all the necessary safeguards.
Let me take this opportunity to reiterate that the outlook remains very challenging. We cannot let our guards down. We must remain vigilant. In particular, we must continue to practice personal hygiene, high level of personal hygiene, ensure that we act responsibly in the society, in the community, and stay at home as much as we can, minimize the need to go out, and if you need to go out, only go out for essential services, essential needs, and when you do so, please wear a mask and please go out alone if possible. Protect the seniors at home and visit them if necessary, but take the necessary precautions if you do need to visit them. So I think we need to work together to continue to keep our guards up, to make sure that we are able to continue to reduce the number of cases in the community, and even as well as among the foreign workers, migrant workers as well. So I think we need to continue to work together to remain vigilant.
Just to reinforce this point, because it is so important, we are making some steps to ease the measures, right, from 12th of May onwards in particular. I hope we strongly want to call on Singaporeans and residents in Singapore not to take this as a signal that now we can slacken, we can go out, and the battle is won. It is far from over. Now, we keep saying this, it is far from over. It is going to be a long fight, and the virus can flare up again anytime. It is not possible to be on lockdown for months on end. That's not possible. So we do have to ease up on some of these measures, particularly when I think the situation is now stabilizing in the community, numbers are coming down, and it does permit us to ease up on the restrictions. But do not regard this as a signal that everything can be permitted and we can just go back to life as normal. We have to now really maintain our discipline, stay vigilant, and keep our guards up, and do everything we can, continuing to abide by the spirit of the guidelines and not just the letter of the law, which means all stay at home, avoid going out as much as possible, minimize contacts, and when you go out, do it alone. These are all still very important requirements for us to continue through the month of May, and perhaps even beyond the month of May in June, because there is still a battle out there, and we still need to stay focused on winning the fight against the virus.